How could the greatest empire in the world collapse from within? Rome looked eternal. Its armies terrified the world. Its senate ruled with immense power. Its cities overflowed with glory. Roman roads connected entire continents. The world believed Rome could never fall. Rome believed it too, but cracks had already begun to spread. The rich became greedier. Loyalty could now be bought with gold. And beyond the borders, someone was waiting for Rome to weaken. Rome had become too large for one man to control. Emperors were assassinated one after another. Politics became a game of poison and betrayal. The Roman throne began to feel cursed. Soldiers no longer served the empire. They served gold. Food prices began to rise. Rome printed more money in desperation. Its value slowly collapsed. Ordinary people began to starve. But the elites kept celebrating behind palace walls. And the greatest city on earth slowly rotted from within. In the north, danger was beginning to move. Goths, Vandals, Huns. They were not monsters. They were humans trying to survive. But Rome saw them as savage threats. The empire had become too vast to defend. Roman legions grew exhausted. So Rome hired foreign mercenaries. It sounded smart for a while, but loyalty bought with money is always fragile. And the threats kept growing. Rome slowly realized it no longer controlled the world. Then the world heard one name, Attila. Attila was not just a warlord. He came like a black storm. Entire cities panicked before he even attacked. Fear spread faster than the Huns themselves. Roman emperors began losing control. Generals blamed one another desperately. Roman legions started retreating. Borders that once seemed invincible began to break apart. City after city fell. Yet inside the palaces, the feasts continued, and Rome slowly transformed from ruler of the world into a frightened kingdom. Roman streets filled with refugees. Food became scarce. Anger spread through the empire. Symbols of Roman glory began to look fragile. Entire regions were abandoned. Taxes continued rising, but ordinary people had nothing left to give. The Senate kept fighting among itself while the empire collapsed. Even Roman soldiers began losing hope. Frontier forts were abandoned. Rome's enemies could see the weakness clearly, and the greatest empire on earth began to shrink. Trade slowly died. Roman cities lost their heartbeat. People searched for safety, but Rome itself no longer felt safe. Fear lived inside every home. Soldiers quietly began to rebel. Loyalty was bought and sold again. Rome was unknowingly arming its own future enemies. Villages were abandoned. Even Rome's engineering wonders began to decay. Older generations realized the Rome they knew was already gone. Yet the elite still lived comfortably behind palace walls. Night after night, the empire sank deeper into its own shadow. Then the Great Migration arrived. Not just armies, entire nations moved toward Rome. Rome panicked. They tried negotiating with the Goths, but hunger and tension quickly exploded into violence. Small mistakes became massive hatred, and the Goths finally rebelled. The year was 378, Adrianople. One of Rome's greatest disasters had begun. Elite Roman legions were destroyed. Emperor Valens vanished in the chaos of battle, and the world finally realized Rome could lose. Adrianople changed everything. For the first time, Rome truly felt fear. The borders began collapsing. Rome's leaders panicked. The empire had become too large and too weak. So Rome made a dangerous decision. They armed foreign mercenaries. And those men slowly realized something important. Rome was no longer strong. Then the Visigoths marched toward Italy, roads filled with panic and refugees. And for the first time in centuries, Rome itself was threatened. The year was 410. The Eternal City was under siege. The leader of the Visigoths was named Alaric. The Roman Senate panicked. Inside the city, hunger killed faster than swords. Then something happened. The gates of Rome opened. For the first time in nearly 800 years, Rome was sacked. The world stood in shock. The city once believed eternal was bleeding. Symbols of Roman glory shattered before the world's eyes. And from that moment, the myth of Rome began to die. After the sack, Rome did not die immediately, but its soul was fading away. Imperial power had become little more than a symbol. Barbarian generals now negotiated inside Roman palaces. Foreign soldiers patrolled Roman streets. and Rome was too weak to stop them. The empire's fate began to split apart. The Eastern Roman Empire still thrived, but the Western Empire slowly decayed. Villages emptied, law and order disappeared. Even veterans began losing faith in Rome. The empire still stood, but only as a shadow of itself. The years that followed felt like a slow death. Citizens were crushed by endless taxes, but the land itself could no longer feed them. Corruption spread through every level of power. Soldiers only remained loyal while the gold continued flowing. Slowly, barbarian leaders began acting like Rome's new rulers. A new generation grew up without knowing Rome's greatness. Rome's engineering marvels were abandoned. Nature slowly reclaimed the empire. The wealthy fled with whatever treasures they could carry. Great Roman cities became eerily silent, and the Western Roman Empire kept shrinking year after year. Rome still had emperors, but their crowns felt empty. Real power now belonged to barbarian generals. Even Roman soldiers followed foreign commanders. New waves of tribes continued crossing the borders, and danger now came from both land and sea. Coastal Roman cities were raided and burned. People began losing faith in the empire itself. They searched for hope elsewhere. The Roman eagle slowly lost its meaning. The world was changing, and Rome barely noticed. The empire had not fallen yet, but everyone could sense the ending. Then, in the year 455, another nightmare arrived, this time from the sea. The Vandals reached the heart of the empire. Resistance was almost non-existent. Rome was too exhausted to fight anymore. Once again, the Eternal City was looted. Centuries of treasure vanished within days. History itself burned alongside the city. The elites fled to save themselves. Ordinary people could only watch their world collapse. Rome now felt like a ghost of its former self. And the world began to realize Rome was truly dying. After the second sack, Rome changed forever. It was no longer the capital of the world. The Senate still existed, but its power was gone. The emperors became little more than shadows. Barbarian leaders now controlled major decisions. The Roman people slowly lost faith in Rome itself. Old veterans watched their world disappear piece by piece. Roads that once connected civilizations were forgotten. Rome's engineering wonders collapsed one after another. Entire villages were abandoned. The empire fractured into weak, isolated regions, and without realizing it, the end was very near. Then came a young emperor. His name was Romulus Augustulus. Even his name sounded like a fading memory of old Rome, but the real power belonged to someone else. A barbarian leader named Odoacer began to rise. Rome had run out of money. Unpaid soldiers lost their patience. Odoacer marched toward the center of Roman power. And the most shocking part, there was barely any resistance. Romulus knew it was over. There was no legendary final battle. Only silence as the Western Roman Empire fell. The year was 476. The Western Roman Empire officially ended. The final emperor was quietly removed from power, and a barbarian now ruled Italy. There was no glorious ending like in legends, only exhaustion from a world collapsing slowly. The city that once ruled the world became filled with ruins. Roman roads slowly fell silent. Nature reclaimed what humanity once conquered. The last generation of Romans watched their world disappear, and Europe entered a new age of uncertainty. But Rome's story was not truly over yet, because even though the empire collapsed, Rome's legacy survived. Latin evolved into the languages of Europe. Roman law continued shaping civilizations for centuries. Their roads still connected the world long after Rome was gone. Even modern governments inherited ideas from Rome. A new world was built upon the bones of the old empire. Rome's knowledge did not die with its emperors. Its shadow still lives inside modern civilization. And maybe that is the most terrifying part. Empires can collapse, but their influence can survive forever. So what truly killed Rome? It was not a single war. It was thousands of cracks left untreated for too long. Greed destroyed trust. Corruption destroyed loyalty. Fear destroyed unity. The empire became too large to survive its own wounds. Even the symbols of Roman greatness began to tear apart. And when the enemies finally arrived, Rome had already died from within. The barbarian invasions were only the final push, against a body already too weak to stand. But here is the strange thing about Rome. It collapsed, yet never truly disappeared. Roman law still shapes modern nations. Latin still echoes through modern languages. Roman roads became the foundations of modern Europe. Even modern armies and governments carry Rome's shadow. The empire died, but its influence did not, and maybe that is what makes Rome so haunting. A civilization can collapse. While its shadow still controls the future, Rome may have fallen, but the modern world was built from its ashes. So the real question is no longer, why did Rome fall? Because every empire eventually collapses. The more disturbing question is this: is the modern world repeating the same mistakes? Inequality, greed, unlimited power. Rome suffered from all of them, and Rome also believed it was too powerful to fail, until small cracks became total collapse. Because civilizations rarely die in a single night. They die slowly, piece by piece, year after year, and maybe that is why the fall of Rome still feels terrifyingly close to our world today.